Your worship, we cannot hear you at the specified place.
Oh. At all? At all?
We can now. We could not when you started. So from the top, I guess, again, please.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Rhodes. Welcome everybody to the regular meeting of Fernie City Council held at 6:01 p.m. on June 27th, 2023. We acknowledge the city of Fernie is located within Kukinamakis, the unceded traditional territory of Yakut Atnakliat. We recognize that we live and work in their vast lands. Akanahunik are from Yakut Atnakliat and are members of the Ktunaxa-speaking peoples of British Columbia, Idaho, and Montana. I'll call this meeting to order. And note that this meeting is being conducted by in-person and electronic means in accordance with Council Procedure Bylaw number 2446. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder for the following recommendation: that if the communication link to the specified place for this meeting is interrupted and cannot be restored within 15 minutes, the meeting shall adjourn and reconvene to the soonest possible time the quorum can be achieved and public notice requirements met. Moved by Councillor Ramdas. Seconded by Councillor Adia Kelly. Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda and any late items. Moved by Councillor Shoesmith. Seconded by Councillor Ramdas. Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. And I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting held on June 13th, 2023, and a special meeting on June 20th, 2023. Moved by Councillor Adia Kelly, seconded by Councillor Nixon. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. That's unanimous. In case anyone's wondering, Councillor McIsaac is here. He's waiting for his computer.
It's going to happen any second.
I'd now like to invite the public in attendance or participating electronically who wish to comment on items listed on the meeting agenda in accordance with section 3.7.3 of the procedure bylaw to address council, except speakers must not address council regarding a matter for which must be held or has been held pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of the matter or adoption of the bylaw. Speakers must not address council regarding a permit for which public notice must be given or has been given pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of issuance of the permit, and the speaker may only address council for a maximum of 3 minutes. I'll ask Ms. Rhodes if there's anyone who has indicated a desire to speak.
No, your worship, no one in person or online.
Thank you, Ms. Rhodes. We'll move on to item 6.1, consideration of bylaws and issuance of permits arising from public hearings or public notice periods. And before I get into this, it's about development variance permit application number DVP A 548. I will ask Mr. McConnell to read the notice requirements.
Thank you, Your Worship. So public notice of council's intent to consider the issuance of DVP 548 on this date at this time is posted on the city's public notice posting places on or before June 15th, 2023. And the public notice is mailed to registered owners within a 50-meter radius of the subject property on or before June 25th, 2023, and hand-delivered to occupants of surrounding buildings within a 50-meter radius of the subject property on or before June 15th, 2023. We did receive one submission, and I see that the individual who submitted it is actually online putting their hand up, but I wish to address that this is not a public hearing. The format for which council receives consideration of this is exactly what was done, to ask for written submissions, and we received the one written submission, and it is on the agenda tonight as well. So I see he's taking his hand down now and has probably understood that. And if he had indicated he wished to have spoken in public participation period to the matter as well, we would not have been able to receive that at that time either. Yeah. So the process is written submissions only. And I should indicate he was not in favor, but as I said, his submission, the submission of the two persons is on the agenda for consideration.
Thank you, Mr. McCollum. I will now hand it over to our manager of planning, Mr. Silverman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Keith, you did. So tonight we're looking at development variance permit application number 548 for development variance permit 548. It's for 901 9th Avenue. The application is to vary the zoning bylaw for the R1 single family residential zone parcel coverage from 35% to 42.8% and rear yard setback from 6.0 meters to 1.5 meters. This would be for the construction of an attached garage onto the existing building. It's worth noting that the building itself, the use of the property is a historic use. It would qualify as what would be an R4 use as far as the density goes, which would be multifamily. So there's 4 dwelling units. It's like a bungalow fourplex, I guess would be the best way to put it. That is an existing non-conforming use. As long as a use is pre-existing zoning bylaw, it's allowed to continue as long as that use continues. So it's to construct a garage on that property that is accessory to that multifamily use. Our rationale for recommending approval is that there is a minimal neighborhood impact. It is a corner property, so the location of the garage is buffered by 9th Street, the 9th Avenue, and the lane. The overall existing height of the existing development is only 5.18 meters, where the R1 zone actually has an allowable height of 10 meters. The garage itself is also below 5 meters or below. The proposed parcel coverage is over what an R1 would allow, but it is within the guidelines of an R3 zone. So the R3 zone, which is again, this is R3/R4. The R3 zone allows for 45% parcel coverage. So this being at 42.8% is below that of an R3. So in theory, if this were to get rezoned to R4 or R3, the parcel coverage with the garage would be below that allowable parcel coverage. As Mr. McCollum noted, we did receive one letter that was opposed to the variance. We did consider the points that were brought forward. We still are sticking by our recommendation that there is minimal neighborhood impact. If council would like, we can walk through these one at a time and just sort of talk about them, and I can answer any questions. Is that okay with council?
Sure, please. Thank you, Mr. Silverman.
So the public comments are listed on your left, the staff comments listed on your right on the screen. Public comment number 1 was that we were relaxing the zoning to accommodate an existing multifamily building, and it sets a poor precedent. I do need to note that every individual application we look at does not set a precedent for the next. In this case, we're looking specifically at a garage that's proposed for the property. We're not looking at changing the use or increasing the density at all. We can't do that with a variance, so we're not actually changing the use of a multifamily site at all. We're adding a garage specifically. It also, the next public comment is that the required variances are excessive, that we're increasing the parcel coverage by 20% and increasing the rear yard setback by 300%. Now 300% does seem like a very large number. We're going from 6 meters to 1.5 meters. Going down to 1.5 meters in the rear yard for garages is something that we do commonly with something like the R1B zoning, for example. In this case, the R1 regulations allow a garage to go down to 1.5 meters in the rear yard, but it specifically says a detached garage. In this case, the garage is attached, but because of the height of the garage and what was proposed, we can view it as having the same impact as what a detached garage would have. It's below 5, it's 5 meters or below, so that going down to that 1.5 rear yard setback doesn't increase the impact over what a detached garage would. As far as the parcel coverage goes, note my previous comment on the R3 versus R1 zoning. The parcel coverage is going over the 25% that's allowed in the R1 zone, but the land use here is consistent with what we see in our R3 zone, and the parcel coverage is below what's allowed in the R3 zone. Adding a second driveway on 9th Street does reduces green area, detracts from the aesthetic appeal, and takes away from on-street parking. Do need to note that the property is currently accessed from both 9th Street and the lane. The access would change from, sorry, I should restate, sorry, your worship, 9th Avenue and the lane. So there's a driveway on 9th Avenue, there's a driveway on the lane. The access would be changed to be 9th Avenue and 9th Street. So the garage would be accessed from 9th Street. It would eliminate that lane access. And in the annex, as I'm sure council is aware, we see some lane access causing issues with things like water freezing and things like that in the winter. So this would actually remove lane access and just move it to the street. So it's a one-for-one trade. They're getting rid of the lane access and bringing in the street access instead. It notes that the garage would reduce the amount of parking stalls required for the site. The garage is keeping the amount of parking stalls consistent. So essentially the existing parking site that is on the back of the property is just being covered by the garage, which would also accommodate vehicle storage. It's also worth noting that the applicant is bringing forward a proposal that would consolidate 2 of the dwelling units into 1. So instead of having 4 dwelling units on the site, there would only be 3 dwelling units on the site. That would reduce the total parking requirement as well by a total of 2 parking stalls. Reduced rear yard setback further impinges on the already narrow lane. We're noting that the lane is 6 meters in that location, as is common with all of our lanes throughout town. This garage is not encroaching on the lane, nor can the lane encroach on the property. So the garage itself is not impinging on the lane and not inhibiting the ability of traffic to go down that lane. And lastly, it notes that the garage was plumbed with a bathroom, or is going to be plumbed with a bathroom. I know that is on the drawings as something that may be in the future. It would have to be to flood construction level. But if someone were to move forward with something without our approval, that could potentially cause issues. But as far as our approvals go, someone would have to apply to put a new dwelling unit in there or what have you, and we would have control over that. And in this case, that wouldn't be a permitted use. However, given the province and what they may be doing, it may be a permitted use in the future. But as of right now, that is not proposed as part of the application. So our recommendation is that council does authorize the issuance of development variance number DVP 548 for 901 9th Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simley. Any questions from council? A couple of points that you raised I think are quite interesting. It's a bit of a historic anomaly, this whole unit, the way it is. And that where it's zoned for the use that it currently has, this wouldn't be an issue in terms of there would be no variance required for coverage.
Yes, Your Worship, you're right. And we did talk about, in talking to the applicant, moving forward with the project, rezoning was something that was discussed. But because of the parcel size, we wanted to keep the land use as it was and not rezone, because the parcel size is too small for the R3 or R4 zoning.
Okay.
So we just said, continue with your use the way it is, and we can try to achieve what you want through the variance process. And again, low lying, the building itself even presents, if you drive by it, it almost presents like a single family. Again, it's a 1-story bungalow, so it's not like it's really obtrusive or anything. So.
Councilman Kennedy.
Thank you, Your Worship. That prompted a question for me, Your Worship, and that's if we can demonstrably have an R3 dwelling on a parcel size that size, that's suggesting that perhaps our R3 parcel size zoning right now may be too restrictive, and perhaps should be expanded to allow for this particular opportunity. I wonder if staff might comment on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Your Worship, through the Councilor McCarthy. We have talked about this before, and it also segues into the R1 versus R1B discussion as well, and the densities, and again, the talk with the province potentially legislating different densities and things across single family zones. All I can really comment on at this point is our zoning bylaw was written in 1997, and it's pretty specific with its sizes and things like that, and we have to work within what it says. But that's not to say that we couldn't put in the time for research to potentially bring R3 zoning parcel size, or R4 zoning for that matter, parcel size down.
Councillor Hamilton?
Thank you. I think I know the answer based on the way Mr. Seemley answered that question, but have staff received any further information from the province on how they're going to roll out the homes for people action plan and the rezoning?
Your worship, through Councillor Hamilton, someone may veto me on this, but I don't believe we've received specific information on that.
Thank you.
Did you have further?
Yes, Your Worship, I was just going to follow with maybe some clarification. From a parcel size for R3 zoning perspective, is it a case that, is it literally have, like that's not something that we can put a variance through on saying it can be R3 even though the parcel size is too small? Is it separate and distinct from, say, for example, varying setbacks because of, or parcel coverage or things like that? Is it separate and
Yeah,
distinct?
your worship, through to Councillor McIsaac, I think we can vary parcel size, as long as the parcel size isn't tied directly to the density. That being said, like sometimes the parcel density will say 1 unit per 200 square meters or
Right.
whatever the case might be, right? So we can't vary parcel size to allow for more dwelling units. I mean, Director Lennox may want to comment on this a little bit, but I think that's correct.
So just to clarify, so in theory then, that would have been another alternative route is rezoning to R3, providing variance on that. What I'm just saying, the reason I'm asking is, it's nice to know that there are several different ways to solve the problem.
Yeah, and I think in this case, the rezoning with variances coupled with it would have been a little bit more of a process, and here we took a little bit less of a regulatory process in order to achieve the same goal.
Fair enough, thank you.
Well, even in your report, Mr. Simley, sorry, Councillor, you indicated that the applicant is going to amalgamate 2 of the units.
That's correct.
So it would have muddied further the zoning process had it gone, because it's going from effectively R4 to R3.
That's correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Right.
Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Your Worship. You had mentioned that it was an anomaly,
Yeah.
right? I'm just curious if staff knows that this is an anomaly. A strange occurrence. Anomaly, there we go, I said it. Again, now, is there other units? I mean, is this a builder that was pulling a fast one and put, in an R1, put in 4 units, sold 4 units, and then,
Yeah.
like, is there more in the annex?
Your Worship, Councillor Nixon, I mean, there may be more. In this case, to our knowledge, the building itself predated the zoning bylaw, or this iteration of the zoning bylaw. So there may be other buildings that predate, for example. I'm not aware of any fast ones being sold. If we were aware, we may have to step towards enforcement on them. But there are those types of items. There's a handful of R4 zone lots, like 4plexes in the annex that are actually zoned R4, that were zoned R4 when the zoning changed, but they were zoned to accommodate for the use that was already on them. So in this case, this property may have been missed in that process, right? I mean, again, we're going back, 25 years as far as the zoning goes, right? So, there's a handful of 4plexes in the annex that are on single-family size lots, so the lot size doesn't match the zoning, but they were just zoned to match the use that was already there.
Thank you.
Yeah, you may have to go several iterations back to the zoning bylaws to figure out how that actually came to pass.
Exactly.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, with that, I will ask Mr. McCollum to read the staff recommendation, if you don't mind.
Sure, so the staff recommendation is that the council authorizes the issuance of development variance permit number DVP 548 for 901 9th Avenue.
Councillor Mover, Councillor Nixon, seconder, Councillor Ramadas, any
DVPA?
No, DVP, I apologize, Your Worship. DVPA references the application.
Yeah.
And this is the actual issuance of the permit. Thank you for the clarification.
So we have a mover and a seconder. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous, thank you. That brings us to item 9, business. Item 9.1 are 2023 roadworks program tender results and a report from project manager Lyon.
Just a very quick presentation tonight, Mayor Milligan and Council, to discuss the tender results. You guys see them yourselves as well. Oh, no.
You could.
Okay. Sorry, I'm seeing many things on my screen right now. Apologies. All right, the invitation to tender received 2 bids, both over the approved budget for this program. The language of the public tender does not allow the city to award a partial scope to the lowest tenderer. Based on the bids received, staff recommend council reject all tenders and reissue the invitation to tender with a reduced scope of work of 9th Street between 7th and 9th Avenues. Due to its ability to tie in 2 very important pedestrian corridors, the lit Highway 3 intersection and the 9th Avenue sidewalk, the 9th Street project is proposed to be retendered versus the 11th Street project at this time. There are alternatives as well. Should council decide to award the entire scope of the program to Border Holdings, an additional just over $500,000 will be required to be drawn from reserves. There is almost $1 million available in the Transportation Reserve Fund. Or the council could choose to defer the program in its entirety from this year and re-tender next year and hope for more bids. Or council could direct staff otherwise. And that is my presentation. I'll leave the options up.
Thank you, Ms. Lyon. Any questions from council? Councilor Nixon, and then Councilor Hamilton, and then Councilor Evans.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I just see in the staff report, it says the RFP was put out on May 26th with a closing date of June 16th. That was about a month and a day ago. And just, is that because it was tied up with our budget process and we hadn't approved the budget yet? Is that why it was issued sort of late?
Yes, exactly. Mayor Milligan through to Councilor Nixon. This program only began its design once the budget was finalized, so that was March.
Thank you.
Councilor Hamilton.
I've got 2 questions, I guess, or a question and thought to consider. First question, what is the likelihood that if we go back out to tender, that just the 9th Ave still is above budget? And second, what is the considered risk of cost escalation between now and next year? If we go over budget this year, okay, or don't go over budget this year, but how much more are we going to have to budget to do 11 next year?
Mayor Milligan through to council, those are good points. So based on the bids we received this time around, that's why we recommended just to have the program, because both of each section 9th Street or 11th Street was under our total construction budget, which was estimated, which we have just over $900,000 for. One was $750,000 and one was about $800,000 for 9th Street. So going back out to tender, it should be within that, but again, we can't guarantee what people will bid because it is a smaller project. And there is always a risk of waiting a year and going into the next year to retender. Every year, whenever we do a cost estimate, we put on 10% from the previous year's cost because there's always increases. And the key part that staff were thinking of retendering just half the program was that we don't want to leave our infrastructure in the state it is in. We want to do something this year.
Thank you.
Councilor Hamilton.
Thank you, Richard. Just have a question with regards to the consultant estimate here. Looking at those 2 numbers there, it appears like they're off by over 25-30% on both counts. Are they doing their job well?
Mayor Milligan through council, really grilling us, don't you? Okay.
Yeah.
So the estimate provided by our consultants, it was lower, it was about $1 million for the entire project. The key part is the major unit rate discrepancies were for asphalt, granular material, and concrete. And because this is just a road resurfacing program, we're not doing underground utilities that much, that's the bulk of the work. And so both of the bidders were within 20 to 30% of their estimates, of the consultant estimates, but because it was such a large amount of the project, it did bring it up $500,600,000.
So the short answer is the consultant's estimate was valid. Thank you. I wonder, maybe for Mr. Burdett, if there's a way, so if we were, for example, to follow the recommendation from the staff report and do the smaller section, is there a way to bid for next year's package earlier, such that we're maybe, taking it from reserves in the early going and replacing it from operating? I don't know how that would work, but is there a methodology we could do that so that we're in a more competitive bid environment?
Thank you, Mayor Malian. I think the best way to do that would be when we do a budget amendment, later this year or sooner. If this dictates the need for it, then we would amend our year 2 budget, which would give staff the authority to put tenders forward, similar to how we did that in January this year.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, for the projects that we had lined up. For most of those were vehicles, but
Thank you, Worship. I actually was going to ask a very similar question, but I want to maybe expand on it just slightly, and that is clearly the financial advantage to the city of doing bids well in advance is obvious. But I'm wondering about those, is it actually possible that, like as Director Burdett said, where we're looking at bidding for year 2 of the budget, does that put future councils in a predicament where they're bound to a certain amount of budget and flexibility because they've already have a contract now with a firm that's going to do work next year? Like, is that manageable, I guess, is what I'm wondering? Is that a real concern?
Well, certainly it would be a concern in an election year, presumably. But
I mean, if it's standard pipeline, I mean, we do inherit, there is a certain amount of that already where, when you first get elected, there's a whole bunch of work that's underway for the following year that whether you like it or not, it's gonna happen. And it does limit a certain amount of flexibility in budget, but very little of it is like contract relations with outside agents. It's things like, severance and, those types of things. So I'm just wondering if we have that flexibility to be able to get a bid a year in advance and still be able to manage the budget that way.
Comments from staff?
It is a good practice and a best practice and a priority for us to move to long-term capital plans, so that not only you see the capital investment for year 2, but you see it year 3 through 5 and far beyond, so that council, as they look at year 2 and beyond, they're understanding what is funded capital and what is unfunded capital, being the infrastructure deficit, what we know we need to do but have no funds for. It is a standard practice to have more fully flashed out year 2 budgets and to operate out of those in year 2. And the final comment I would say is council is a continuing body. So regardless of who is around the table, council decisions are council decisions representative of the community, and you're a continuing body, and your concern really should be in my opinion, your concern should be the effective management and oversight of the budget, and through myself, operations. And that's correct. A highly detailed and formalized year 2 budget does to some degree constrain your decisions in the next year, and should be informed with flexibility so that you can respond to emergent challenges or changes in priorities.
Councilor Nixon.
Thank you, Mr. I'm really worried about the cost escalations that we would see for next year as well. And I would always be willing to say I would go for option 2. This whole situation just sort of reminds me of, Municipal Insurance Association of British Columbia, whereas they ended up having to spend so much money on insurance that they ended up creating their own association, right? And now we're self-insured. So I look at this as our municipality, the same with Elkford and Sparwood and Jaffrey, and we're all at the whims of these RFPs, right? And I'm just wondering if there's any future solutions of a bunch of municipalities getting together and buying their own equipment.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we're always going to be, the prices are just going to go up forever. And we get it for 2 weeks, somebody else gets it for 2 weeks, et cetera, et cetera. So, not proposing that tonight.
I appreciate the question, or even the proposition, but ultimately, in this circumstance, it was the commodities that drove the price up, not the equipment or the cost of the equipment or equipment hours. It was the actual supplies that were required to do the job. Councilor,
Just as a kind of a follow-up question to both yours and Councilor McIsaac's question, if we were to go ahead with re-tendering for next year earlier, how soon would we re-tender the 11th Street portion? And I'm just curious, if we were to go to RFP in October for whatever spring break up, cycle start, are we going to be able to get a better price because they're locking in their work to start, or is it again such a small project that we might not get as much interest?
I'll try and field that, Mayor Milligan and Council.
thank you.
One, we already have the design set, right? So we're ahead there, but we also might choose to do another project and wrap it into a program, which would limit us right now at putting an RFP out in the end of this year because we haven't done that design yet. But we could do it early in the year if we got approved budget, knowing that we had this issue this year that we got the very high prices, and perhaps, and with a earlier request for proposals, you may get more interest and lower prices.
Just as kind of a follow-up to that, what is, and I know staff is working really hard towards this, is speeding up our budget cycle, but this is, I can count at least 3 other instances in the past 5 years where we've gone to tender at such a late date that everybody's coming back with numbers that are way higher than what we proposed. So, kind of to Councilor McIsaac's question, like, how do we set the city up so that we know what we're going to be doing next summer, and we can start going with RFP in October, November, December, as opposed to waiting until April, May for that sort of stuff? Or conversely, like one of the other examples that comes to mind is putting a tender for road salt and gravel in May, not November.
Thank you, Councilor Hamilton. As you mentioned, it's still a work in progress, and this year we've made some strides with that year 2 amendment that we did in January for some things that we did have on the docket. And even this particular project, I would say, is earlier than some of those examples you gave. And so I think, I know that Council has heard this a lot, but as we work more on our asset management program and our more detailed 10, 20-year plan, it's only going to get earlier and earlier. So I'm really hopeful for this coming year's budget cycle to have, I won't say a perfect grasp on it all, but certainly a better one as we put more and more time into this.
Thank you, Mr. Burdick. Councilor Artie Kelly.
My question was actually similar to Councilor Hamilton's. So if we go with the recommendation of staff and re-tender, are we confident that we're going to get bids? And are we anticipating them to be similar figures for that scope of work? So i.e. within the 917,000.
Mayor Milligan, through to council. Yes, it is definitely there is a risk that it will go up because a tenderer may want to see a certain amount of profit. And if we're only putting out half the project, they may increase their profit margins, and so the unit prices would not be the same. However, we can't know that without putting it back out there.
Councilor McCutcheon.
Thank you, Your Worship. That segues actually fairly nicely into the question that.
May I also add that putting it out there again does not mean we have to award the tender if we do get terrible prices, high prices again.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Trying to keep this at a policy level discussion, but what I'm wondering about is, and this has come up previously in prior years in council about the discussion, especially with road work, with regards to the scale of the project being a big influence on what the pricing is. And I think it was just mentioned about, how do they get their profit margin in there on the smaller ones. So I guess on the one hand, the reason I'm asking this is I'm a bit loath to dive into the reserves, but would like to get the work done. And I'm wondering if the likelihood of inflationary increases next year could be slightly offset by combining the current year's work with next year's plan as a larger RFP that goes out. And yes, it will delay it somewhat, but a larger project might give us better scale, it might get us better pricing. I'm just wondering if that's a potential strategy for consideration.
Mayor Milligan, through the council, absolutely. I believe this budget came out of reserves. So we would just be putting it right back, and then next year, I would agree that typically a larger project scope, program scope, does interest more bidders.
Yeah.
And do we have a sense of what next year's project would be in addition to this year's project to give us that sense of scope?
Mayor Milligan, to the council, that was one of the questions I did not prepare for, so off the top of my head,
No,
I'm
fair.
not going to tell you.
Yeah, no, fair enough, but there is work we had planned for next year. We just, at this point, would have to figure out what that was.
There's definitely enough roads in town to upfleet.
Yeah, thank you. Councilor Schussler.
Perhaps a moot point, the way the discussion is going, but through your worship to staff, and maybe I've just missed it or missed something here, or it's just not a problem in this case. What are the status of the pipes under that road? Does this project include that, or are those pipes up to snuff at the moment?
Mayor Milligan, through to council, the way we chose these streets is that we did look for roads that were in poor condition, but the utilities, the deep utilities below, are in reasonable condition. So that was the first criteria to find the total list of roads in the city. So yes, that was step one into the project list.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the succinct presentation. That was great.
Just through with your worship to Engineer Warren, just to get a sense, the materials were the primary. So is it lack of material, like is it supply chain related? Because inflationary pressure is diminishing as time goes by, and supply chains may or may not be improving. So I mean, we don't have a crystal ball, but that was the main. Just so I understood that was the main reason why the estimates were way off what the consultant expected?
Mayor Milligan, through to council, the tenderers did not provide why their cost estimates, they just provided a cost estimate, so we would have to go to them to ask, why was your unit price so high?
Yeah, just the sentence in the report about higher than estimated market rates based on our consultant's recent experience.
Yes.
Yeah, and of course it's speculation, but they also may may be subject to the fact that they're coming to the table late in terms of raw materials, and therefore they're paying a higher dollar for it. But I don't know that for sure. Councilor Robbins.
Your worship, just a thought, not a question to anyone. I understand, increasing the scope might bring some economies of scale, and we may be able to save some costs. That is also speculation, just don't know. Expanding the scope might also mean escalation in prices further, so we should be open to that risk also.
Yeah, that's a fair comment, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, which begs the question, are we cautious now, retender what we have, decide at that point whether we go ahead or not, and then revisit this decision to rebundle it for next year?
I'll just share my thought process. I'm really quite torn between that direction or what Councillor Nixon proposed earlier of going ahead and taking that additional money out of reserves. It's been my experience sitting around this horseshoe that nothing gets cheaper by waiting a year. And just, we need to get 11th Street done as well. How much more is it going to be next year is the question, not is it going to be more, it's how much more. Or is there, financial calculation at present value, future value of sitting, those reserves sitting in account for another 12 months and earning interest versus the cost escalation, or are we actually going to be saving a dollar figure, a measurable dollar figure by spending more money today? I don't know which way I'm leaning right now, but that's the decision I'm trying to grapple with.
That's certainly the calculus we're all grappling with, I think. Councillor Ramdas and Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. I know the staff has said this is critical, this is end of life. Can you please explain what that exactly means? Like how many more months or years can this last?
That's a very hard question to answer.
What's the consequence if we don't do this? Maybe I should phrase it that way.
If we don't replace it in 1 year, it's going to work. There is an existing sidewalk actually on 9th that isn't really usable. It's on the south side, and we are actually proposing to put the new sidewalk on the north side because it'll tie into the crosswalk. So that section of sidewalk is really poorly maintained, but to be honest, it's what I see happening in the annex anyways, people walk on the road. So we are trying to provide a safer pedestrian pathway network throughout the city, and this is one project to do that. It will do as it will for a year.
Councillor Kelly.
Through Your Worship, to Engineer Line, actually was something you said, Your Worship. Really, what is the risk if we re-tender for this smaller scope project because we can choose not to award it?
Through council, there isn't really a risk. There will be potentially a slight amount of cost for the consultant because we'll be doing a re-tender. But to be honest, it's very small, and it gives us the knowledge of how people have rebid, or if we get other bidders, maybe. And then, we can or we do not have to award it. So that was why it was our first recommendation to tender this smaller amount.
Director Jansen, you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to add to Engineer Line's comments, that particular road was prioritized through the integrated infrastructure capital plan based on the road condition itself, and she did speak to the safety of the pedestrian corridor as a risk to not doing the project. But I wanted to just circle back to the conversation around the commodities and the late tendering and that pricing. It is very common for tenders to come in and bidders are putting their profit margins in the unit costing of commodities, like they're under no obligation to identify exactly where their costs are. So, I would caution you to consider the late in the game tendering and look to a future year, because they're likely burying that cost in those commodities, especially if our engineering consultant is looking at recent costs at more appropriate costing times of the year.
Thank you, Director Johnson. Councilor Shoesmith.
Oh yeah, there it is. So is there anything stopping us from, towards the end of this year, amalgamating this block of work with next year's budgeted block of work, putting it out for tender and having it come right up for spring? I mean, at that point, we'd be awarding that this year still, or in 6-8 months' time. Is there some reason to not do it that way?
Well, that was one of the things we toyed with here, I think.
Yeah.
And it's as Engineer Lyme said, she's not quite sure of the scope of next year's work, but
seems to me it would kind of get us a little, not the best of both worlds, it would be a decent compromise.
and I look to staff for guidance on this. Is it appropriate to table this until such time as we have a clearer picture of what next year's scope of work could look like, and then revisit this item? But that would, of course, have to happen in short order in terms of our budgeting requirements for next year.
Mayor Milligan, through the council, my concern is that we do have a 21-day window to tell the tenderers who has won or cancel it, and we are at day 11 today.
Okay. Well, Councilor Ramirez.
I have a procedural question.
Please, yeah.
Are we voting for is the motion for option 2 or motion for option?
There is no motion on the floor.
On the floor, yeah.
Are you proposing the motion?
Councilor Shoesmith?
I'm close.
Okay.
The infrastructure reserves, they're essentially tied down, and this is only like the transportation infrastructure. It can't be any other thing. It's for roads. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Councilor.
okay, I'll make the motion for that option number 2. I think we need to spend the money, and I think we need to do it now. I think next year we're gonna be ifs and ands. We don't know where that's gonna be. We know where this is right now. If we do a reduced scope, then it's gonna be, who knows, it could be 1.3 million, and we still have to dip into our reserves, whereas we're getting our,
Second.
yeah.
Would like I'll read the option since it's not the one presented on the agenda. The option 2, as I understand it, is that council award the entire scope of work to Border Holdings Limited with the remainder of the budget funded through reserves, an increase of $584,071.10.
And you're seconding that, Councilor Shoesmith? Any further discussion? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And those opposed? Thank you. Good discussion. Item 9.2, financial information for the period ended March 31st, 2023. A report from our Director of Finance, Mr. Bird.
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. Good evening, Council. I don't have a presentation. The report in your package is presented for Council's information. The last time that we did this was before the election in the fall, and the feedback received at that time was to have snow removal split out from Public Works, which we've done, and then also to split out salaries as a cost category. So both of those have been added to the to this quarter's report. And also, we have a general summary of all the department's major projects attached to the report as well. So staff are here to help answer any questions and also to record feedback of anything council would like to see for next quarter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burdick. Questions from council? Well, I was maybe curious, Mr. Burdick. So as I read these, there's the year-to-date, the full year's budget, and the variance is based on the full year's budget. Do we not track or estimate our quarterly progress in the budget or monthly?
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. My comments that are in there are, and I guess I wasn't clear about this, but they were kind of based on dividing the annual budget by 4 and comparing the year-to-date to those.
Okay.
So when you look at benefits, for example, they are higher than our annual budget divided by 4 because of things like CPP and EI being front-end heavy.
Okay, thank you. Your comments were clear. I just wasn't, I missed that part. If it's not in the report or it's in the report, I missed that completely because I thought just as a handy comparator to see where we would expect to be at Q1.
Yeah, that's great feedback. And again, all my comments were based on that math.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I will add that column and that sentence of clarity as well.
Thank you. Councilor McKay.
Thank you, Worship. I actually was going to ask us, well, not so much ask, I guess, as make a comment in a similar fashion as, while this is very interesting, it's difficult to see its applicability to the decision-making process because there's an awful lot of information that's not accessible to us, such as a lot of things within our budget. All of the money spending happens at a particular time of the year, right? So all the invoices come in for a bunch of work done later in the year. The first quarter of the year, there's no spending, and then all of a sudden it all catches up at the end. I'm not asking for that information because I don't know if I need that information to make good policy decisions. I might, if I was the operations manager, I would need that information, but I don't know if I need it here at this table. So while I find this very interesting, I don't know that it's necessarily propelling us forward in better financial decision-making, unless somehow this ends up tying into the budget discussion later.
Pre-verbal tension, Councilor Ramos.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I agree and disagree.
I'm shocked.
I understand, like, somehow this has to come back to a policy level decision. I completely appreciate that, but also having some kind of a roadmap between now until December 31st is a valuable piece of information. And I feel like some kind of estimates is required, to your point. You know, if you don't have the information, doesn't mean we can't estimate. So that would still be helpful for us to make quality decisions come budget time.
And I tend to agree with that, insofar as trending is helpful, right? If we may not, to your point, need the information today, but if we see the information over time, we may identify trends. Certainly, Mr. Burdick would identify trends, but we may identify trends that will help inform our policy decisions. Councilor Patrick,
yeah, if I may, well, not so much rebuttal, but I guess where my concern is getting good signal out of the noise. And if we're presented with a bunch of numerical data that's ongoing without the context for when the spending occurs and so on, what we might lose in that are the 2 or 3 things where extraordinary spending or unusual spending or anomalous spending has occurred, which is actually something that would affect policy making and decision making. So I guess what I'm getting at is what I would prefer to know is not so much that how things are ticking along on a day-to-day basis, because that's what we expect staff to be doing. What I'd rather see is a condensed piece of information is these 3 things have varied outside of the budget expectations and may result in decision-making changing later, either now or later in the future. like that, to me, that feels more valuable from a decision-making process, as opposed to here's the list of total overtime. Well, I might care about that if total overtime is at 250% of what it normally is in a year. But without knowing that, and some context for that, I don't know if it matters to us. I don't know, do we need to make a decision about that now? And in fact, mostly I expect staff to come forward and tell us that anyway.
Sure.
Right, so I want to be careful here in saying, I appreciate the work that's done, and I do appreciate having the information. But going back to our job as policy and not managing the dollars, I'd rather something that's more policy related.
And to kind of further that point, as far as feedback for staff, I almost wonder if it would be better, rather than giving us dollar figures, if it was presented in a graph, a line graph of this is what the expected is, and this is where our actuals are, just so that we can see from a policy, from a high level perspective, are we on trend, are we below trend, are we above trend, what, and then be able to ask the question of why, versus, well, getting down to the pennies in some of these numbers. That shouldn't matter to anything that we do at this level.
As long as it's not a pie chart.
As long as.
Sorry.
Councillor Audie Kelly and then Councillor Shoesmith.
I just wanted to clarify with Councillor McIsaac, Your Worship. Were you meaning more, Councillor McIsaac, like red flags? Things that we...
Well, if I may respond, Your Worship.
Yeah, please.
I think what I was getting at was more a case of, when we went through the whole budget process, we were presented with all the various areas in the city and what they're going to spend money on and so on. We already know all that. So reiterating that on a regular basis isn't nearly as helpful as saying, oh, actually our plan is not working. Right, that's where, and not only that, but we're gonna need you guys to affect some sort of change so that we can get back on plan. That's where I would rather see the information targeted. Yeah.
Thank you.
So just the shorthand would be budget performance at a glance.
Yeah, as Councillor, I was going to say Councillor McIsaac. Now it's I wasn't really going to. As Councillor Hamilton said, that at a glance trend line is probably much more helpful than a specific number without getting to compare to.
Yeah.
And I feel kind of bad because when this came up last year in the discussion, I was very keen to see the information, but now that I have it, I'm going, how is this actually helping me to make a better decision at the table today? So,
Councillor Shoesmith.
As the youngest and least experienced councillor here, I actually find this incredibly helpful for getting a feel on exactly what is going on. And even though, while you're correct, Councillor McIsaac, we should be policy people, we should also sort of have a grasp of what's going on. And the more I see stuff like this, the stronger my grasp of that becomes. So I find this fairly helpful.
As an information tool, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Bush. I think it will be like management by exception is what we are kind of pointing towards across the table here. That was one thing, and I just have a question to Director Burdett too. From one of the lines in your report there, Director, you did mention that going forward this will get more refined, right? Like when we are discussing this same information, say in November, there will be a higher level of confidence in some of the numbers, right? There will be fewer estimates. Is that right?
Yes, totally. And I mean, to build on what Councillor McIsaac was saying, and he did touch on this, if there were anomalous items, it would be in the report, pointing them out to council. Like the intent, the overall intent of this report is for council to be a body of oversight and also to give them a heads up if there's a budget amendment required because of an anomaly. So what I will add, and I made a note of this, is to maybe have a section specifically speaking to that, to have like a trend line, but also to either confirm that there is nothing that's out of the budget or detail what those are.
Yeah, and thank you, Mr. Burris, because I got that from your notes that you would, this one, no red flags, but it's were that to happen, you would certainly point to it. Sorry, Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, Worship. I actually, in my note to myself for tonight, actually wanted to make a comment, not just about the numbers, but also about the specific notes on major objectives portion of the report, which is exactly what, that's the part that really jumped out for me as being very incredibly valuable. I really appreciated that view of this is what's going on and why. That was very valuable, so thank you for that part of it.
Yeah, indeed. Councilor Ryan,
Thanks, Mayor. And I completely agree with what Councilor McIsaac said. The view here with the status is really useful for myself. Although one question I do have for CAO here, Your Worship, just looking at it, I mean, if you have like a bunch of initiatives, projects, you are expected to see some are on track, many not, and things like that. From your assessment of the portfolio that you have, do you believe that these are right size, like rightly loaded given your resources? Is there opportunity to drop a few things?
That's a very good question, Your Worship, and to Council. I think there are a number of initiatives where staffing disruptions have caused some challenges this year in particular, where initiation, delivery, maintenance of those projects is delayed. Some of those are noted here. There are others that are more recent, as in since the writing the report or publishing of the agenda, we have had some staff have to take leave, unfortunately. And so we are going to see some projects delayed or impacted. I would note that we were not successful in the Strategic Priorities Fund grant, which was a major infrastructural renewal. And it's noted in context. It was reflected in the budget and is no longer a funding stream that we anticipate receiving, and so no longer a major project that we were going to take on for the year. Mr. Hausler and I started approaching our workload planning with projects that he would use the term sacrificial, I would use the term more discretionary than mission critical, or lower priority, so that as we saw disruptions coming into the stream, particularly in engineering and public works, we were able to have projects that would be set aside, noting that budget would also be set aside and focus on the priority projects or the new disruptions coming down the pipe. I would like a little time to think about a solid response, and would offer that I could provide that to council in the near future, but I'd like to think about that question a little bit before getting into really significant detail. Capacity planning remains something that we're slowly advancing across multiple departments, and it's not all at the more mature state where it is in engineering and public works.
And which actually, to Councillor McIsaac's earlier comment, I made a bit of a note to myself in terms of that project list. It's not clear looking at the list which are the priority projects and which are not, and which could be moved down the list in terms of priority if absences or staff disruption impact them. And I sort of thought I'd like to see it. This would be my personal preference, since Mr. Bird has asked for feedback, is what is each department's maybe top 5 priority projects? What are the next handful, call it 3, discretionary projects or projects that we would like to get to this year if these projects are complete, and then just move all the completed stuff to the bottom, which I think is important to track and make sure council and everyone is aware that we're completing projects, but sort of give it to us in a way that we can see this is what we're focused on. These are the 5 top priorities that we're going to work on this year and spend the bulk of our resources and time. Does that make sense?
Absolutely makes sense. Absolutely makes sense, and it's a column that's hidden on one of the tables that I can add in from one department, but we'll need to just work on that through the other departments as well. but absolutely appreciate it, understand it, and see the value in it, yeah.
Councilor Owens.
Thanks, your worship. It's exactly about to say the same thing as you did. You said it much better than I thought in my head. The other thing is, the reason why this question came about for myself is when I was looking at the ones that are delayed, there were like some critical ones, like, zoning bylaw, DCC, OCP planning, they're all like mission critical, I feel, for us as a community, as a city. So, having that priority and, like, is it coming at, like, are you doing P3s and you've completed P3s at the cost of 2 or 3 P1s that are delayed? Like, that's the kind of insight we would do.
Yeah, to Councilor McCaskey's earlier comment about seeing where the critical issues are and the policy decisions required to potentially shift resources to say, no, that can wait.
Yep.
And appreciating it, I'm not trying to paint that as an operational decision, but as a policy decision, things like the DCC bylaw, for example, which will have implications for the revenue of the city, for example. Being able to have those, whether they're green light, amber light, red light, I don't know what the structure is exactly, but so we can understand and support those decisions. Very good. That's a lot of feedback. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, do you need more from us, or you don't need a resolution of any sort from this? No,
On this report.
thank you. Thank you. Staying with Mr. Burden, 9.3, our 2022 Statement of Financial Information.
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. Again, no presentation, just a few points. This is the last item required by the province for our 2022 financial reporting. It's due on June 30th of every year. The audited financial statements are there only because the province requires them to be submitted again as part of the Statement of Financial Information. So they haven't changed since council approved them in mid-May, but I just wanted to present the package as a whole that will be submitted to the province. The other point I'd like to make is on page 95 of the amended package. I have some people's job titles wrong. They're old in there, so I'll be sure to update those before submitting to the province later this week. So I apologize for that oversight. Aside from that, again, I'm here to help answer questions.
Sure, Acting Fire Chief Morgan will be happy to hear that.
If I may, your worship.
Yes.
Sorry, I apologize, and I apologize to Director Perdit if you didn't hear this, but just for confirmation, this afternoon we did change out that page.
Yes, the original agenda package, this would have been page 94. On the one this afternoon is page 95. The bottom 3 rows of that line had a formula error, and I apologize, I just returned from vacation today, so I was doing a last minute review and only caught this today, so that's why that page was amended. But then I also missed some old titles on that page, so there's a few more.
So the document that's attached tonight would be the one that's being approved.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Oh, no. Come on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I apologize, Mr. Bird, because this is something I probably should have done before, but in the audited financial statements on the consolidated schedule of tangible capital assets, the closing balance on a number of the line items doesn't, for 2021, doesn't match the opening balance of 2022. And I'm curious if there's a reason for that I'm not aware of, or?
Thank you for that, Councilor Hamilton. Just 1 second while I find that. Okay, so, on that schedule, which I believe is page 77 of the republished agenda, it was page 76 of the original agenda. The closing balance for 2021 is the third column with numbers in it, so it totals 169 million. And it's at the very bottom of the page. And then that.
Okay, yeah, no, I was looking, that's smaller.
Yeah, so it's not far right.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Ramsden.
Thank you, Worship. This is a long pending question. I should have asked this way back, but hopefully I'm not too late with this question. I just wanted to understand, like, when I was looking at the tax exemptions list, I do see Fernie Golf and Country Club, $16,000 a year. Just wanted to understand the history behind that, if it's okay with you guys.
Counselor, can you give me the page for that, just so that I can reference it in context?
It's 153 of 181. I apologize, I've seen this during budget meeting too, but I didn't ask that question.
Yes, these are property tax exemptions.
Yeah.
They will have applied for and been granted by council resolution a permissive tax exemption. I can, not in the moment, but following the meeting, pull a history of their applications for permissive tax exemptions and council resolutions for those.
Thank you. Thank you, Worship.
You're welcome. Any other questions? On that note, I'll ask Mr. McConnell to read the
Recommendation.
staff recommendation.
Certainly. The staff recommendation is that the 2022 Statement of Financial Information be approved for filing with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and that the Mayor and Director of Finance be authorized to execute all documents related to the 2022 Statement of Financial Information Report.
Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Audie Kelly. Any further discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Burdett. And this moves us on to item 9.4, our 2022 annual municipal report and annual general meeting. A report from our CAO, Mr. Barnowski.
Thank you very much. Council, Mayor and Council, in this agenda, we have attached the annual municipal report for the year 2022. The purpose of the report is to present it to Council for approval and to seek or to invite the public to comment or ask questions regarding the annual report. While I don't have a PowerPoint presentation, I do have a few comments I'd like to share. First, specifically, prior to tonight's meeting, we have received one online comment or question and comment related to the report. As noted in the report, I'll provide a summary of that here. They note that there is a lack of reporting on climate adaptation, emissions or greenhouse gas reductions on behalf of the city, and climate change adaptation, essentially reporting on our environmental sustainability measures. And they ask that a stronger focus on that reporting, and specifically Climate Action Program grant reporting, be improved in the annual report. This is a valid comment. We have not done a phenomenal job of reporting on our climate activities in this annual report. I don't have a strong rationale for why, other than we were producing the report at a time when we were handing it off between staff. And so there was an absence of staff to complete that report, and we have met our requirements, but have not had the opportunity to really enhance that aspect. But it is duly noted, and it is an area that we want to improve as well as staff. Separately, I would just like to share that while this is looking back at 2022, I believe it is important on the topic of climate adaptation and emission reductions to note that we are reaching or have reached substantial completion on both the Annex Dike, protecting homes in the, and residents and commercial businesses in the Annex property from flooding, and substantial completion of the Fernie Valley Pathway, which is one of the spines of our active transportation network, and does provide universally accessible transportation options from bridge to bridge through the community and beyond. We are very proud of it at staff. I'm very proud of both the climate risk mitigation protection that it provides, as well as opportunities for active transportation and greenhouse gas reductions there. I did want to note also the delegation of authority and changes in our Planning and Development Services Department. We recognize Mr. Simolini, who recently presented to approximately 30 municipalities on this change, the delegation of authority and the way we have changed minor variances and how those are processed at the Local Government Management Association annual conference, AGM in Nanaimo. And finally, recognize human resources and occupational health and safety. 2022 marked our third consecutive year without lost time injuries at the City of Fernie. And we operate a very complex and highly manual work environment. And all of our staff deserve significant recognition under the leadership of our Manager of Health and Safety and Manager of Human Resources for transforming the way we do business here. Those are major accomplishments for us, and I think deserve some recognition to the staff who have made that possible. Beyond that, I'm here to respond to questions or comments, and the recommendation is for council that you approve the annual municipal report, and as is required, invite the public to comment or ask questions regarding that report.
Questions of Mr. Bonos? Thank you for highlighting those, our HR practices and our safety practice. I think 3 years without LPAs than our LPI is a significant accomplishment that should be celebrated. So thank you for raising it, Mr. Bonos. Councilor McIsaac?
Move.
Seconded by Councilor Hamilton.
Would you like me to read the record?
Yes, please.
So I believe Councilor McIsaac moved that council approve the 2022 annual municipal report and invite the public to comment or ask questions regarding the annual report.
Precisely.
I'm sorry, I missed the second one.
Councilor Hamilton. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Sorry, I'm sorry, I thought
Anticipatory hand raising.
I thought it was question.
That's unanimous. And now, we invite anyone wishing to ask questions to Ms. Rhodes. Is there anybody online?
There's nobody in attendance online.
Okay.
But there might be somebody at the
specified place. Ms. Rhodes?
No, your worship, no one in person. Sorry, your worship, we lost the audio from council chambers.
They can't hear me, they can't hear anyone.
Thank you, Ms. Rhodes.
You are back now. I could hear Councillor McIsaac.
You played right into her hand.
I was super proud. I just wanted to comment that, you know, the vast majority of things that the city does are rarely seen by the general public. There's a lot of stuff that goes on, you know, underneath the pavement and behind walls, and things like HR and safety management and so on. Well, I think everyone around the table here really appreciates it, and I think a lot of people in the community appreciate when they discover it. But it's not forward in people's minds. The climate change initiatives that we undertake are incredibly important and incredibly expensive and incredibly unsexy, right? You know, things like dike repairs and so on these are things that, if it's done right, no one will notice. That's the unfortunate reality about getting a lot of stuff done right in the city, is when it's done right, no one notices because there's no issues, because it was already anticipated and fixed. I think that's something that we need to reiterate, you know, as Mr. Baranowski stated, you know, that the request about acknowledging the climate change and so on is super valuable. It is an oversight. But boy, we could go on all day talking about all of the accomplishments and so on that are in there. And I think we should, and I think we should take more opportunity to do it. It's just unfortunately, and maybe it's not unfortunate, maybe it's actually fortunate that the reality is the vast majority of things that the city accomplishes all year long are things that are not going to get big accolades because they're preventative. they're ensuring that things will just continue to operate later. They're ensuring that water just keeps coming out of the tap without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
I think these are miraculous. We just have forgotten that it's miraculous in 2023, that's all. So kudos to all the staff and all the amazing things that are in the report and all the things that are not in the report that we have actually happened.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the comment, and I think too that, as Mr. Barmanowski pointed out, the response or the request from the community to talk more about, amongst other things, the climate action plan is a reminder for us to celebrate those things.
Indeed.
And the annual report is an opportunity to do that, but not just the annual report. Let's, I can't wait to use my big scissors to cut a ribbon for that.
Yay!
Today.
They better be big scissors.
They are big scissors. Thank you, Councilor McCarthy. That's a good point. Moves us on to item number 11, reports from council members, and I will start with Councilor Nixon.
Wow. Amazing, usually I'm like second last or something. And I don't have very much to say other than, Canada Day is coming up and looking forward to handing out some cupcakes with Councilor Ayub Kelly, right?
And Rabbit.
Oh. Well, I didn't see the all of them. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Ayub.
Thanks, Your Worship. I attended, the Métis kindly invited me to celebrate with them on National Aboriginal Peoples Day, and it was very lovely. They shared cultural stories. They asked me to present, and since I hadn't really had an opportunity, I hope I did okay. And I just wanted to say to them, big reach, thank you. It was lovely to be included. I'm going to hand out cupcakes with Councillor Nixon and Ramadas. Maybe that's an anomaly, I'm not sure. And I also would like to recognize Fernie citizen Wayne Gallagher, who is at the Special Olympics and came fourth in his one event, very narrowly losing in the bronze medal match in the team event, but won a silver medal in another event. And I think it would be lovely if, I would like to suggest that perhaps Mayor Milligan, on behalf of himself and council, could maybe send Wayne a letter to recognize him for that big achievement. And
I would be delighted to do so. Do we need a motion?
Do we need a motion with that?
Or can we just go ahead and do that?
I'm sure you can go ahead and do that.
Perfect, thank you. We'll do that.
And on that note, I discovered that we actually don't have a recognition policy, so I'd like to suggest that we think about creating a recognition policy that would encompass things like this and formalize them, and possibly things like hanging winning hockey banners in the arena, or maybe someone has a great achievement. I noticed Scarwood, the grads were all on the light standards, things like that. So just a suggestion that maybe we could consider developing a policy. And thank you.
Thank you, Worship. Well, I don't have too much to report. One was, I very much enjoyed the walk across the border with the Tanahag on Indigenous Day. I've done it a few times now, and it's quite a moving thing. Like, I really enjoyed it, and I'm not sure if I can appreciate the beyond the ceremony as well, but I understand what they're trying to do, and I really enjoyed it, and I appreciated being invited. And the other thing that I had to report was we recently had Association of Kootenay Boundary Local Government meeting, AKPLG, where we were busy moving and prioritizing the resolutions that were passed at the AKPLG convention and writing letters in order for ministerial meetings as well, much like as the city is in the process of doing as well. So, yes, that's it for me.
Thank you. Councilor Ramirez.
Thank you, Worship. I wasn't too social last 1 week here. Just looking forward to distributing those cupcakes at Canada Day. One thing I do want to bring to attention, Your Worship, is the discussion we had with regards to the public-private partnership case study that Councillor Nixon distributed to us. I was just hoping if I can drop a motion of some sort so that staff can bring back what we can glean from that report and any kind of recommendations for us in the council.
I will look to staff.
If I may, Your Worship,
Please.
it would be helpful for staff to know a basic level of detail that you'd like in analysis. Is it a review and summary of that report, or are you looking for, say, engineering or business case analysis where we would maybe bring in a consultant to inspect that sector and give recommendations and comparisons to our local system? If it's a summary, I would say Mr. McConnell can help craft an appropriate resolution for staff to review the report and bring a summary back to council at a future meeting.
Just a summary, Your Worship. That's all I am seeking with this, unless council has different views on that.
Thank you, Worship. No, I'd be interested in a summary as well, but I also would be, I guess where I'd like to slant the request to staff to push it in the direction of the applicability to our current situation, right? Not so much necessarily a summary of what happened in their situation, but is what happened in their situation applicable to us, right? That, and in some form that we can say, okay, that looks like it's worth investigating and spending some time on and so on, or saying, no, it probably isn't. That's what the decision I'd be looking for. I'm not sure if that meshes up with it.
I think that's actually what you were articulating initially, wasn't it, Councillor Ramirez?
Yes, Your Worship. The way I was thinking about it is from our operations visit, we looked at end to end of how water goes through our system. So that spurred this conversation initially, and then I also want to be a little strategic about it. Like since we are going to UBCM in September, I think it might be worthwhile to actually look at this framework and see if there is any kind of applicability for us in solving our wastewater treatment issue. And if there is more information coming from the staff, it will just arm us with more information for us to go and actually have effective conversation with
potentially be better positioned to have this conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
Did you have a comment?
No, just to support the direction.
Okay. Mr. Ronos.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I may, the council, understanding our current staffing model for engineering is resources being backfilled through our consultant of record. I would anticipate, and would like council just to be aware, I would anticipate a couple of hours to a few hours of time would be billed for such a request, rather than it being lost capacity in internal staff, salary and benefits in internal staff providing that service. So that you're aware, it would be expensive. I would estimate up to potentially $800 for such work if we were to have the engineer undertake it, given their own.
Yeah, I think it's worth it.
To support that, I think that's money well spent if it's going to potentially end up in a project with hundreds of millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars. A dollar figure, that's a very understandable expense.
Just to weigh in on this as well, I do have the email from the lady who gave me the tour of the wastewater system, and I would be happy to forward that name to staff. And I know that the project, she says that her name is Vicki Campbell, and Ms. Campbell said that the project starts, their numbers start to make sense at around $100 million. So hopefully it won't,
hopefully it won't make any sense at all.
Well said.
Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, Mr. McConnell, you
I'm
were
working on something.
Thank you.
Camber's at what, 93?
Wait a minute.
Well, I'm trying to make it work in such a way that it identifies. So I'm gonna put this in the chat, and I'm gonna see if I can actually, if this makes sense to folks. And now, for some reason, my computer's not doing. And I'm receiving direction from you. Mr. Bornowski during that time. For some reason, it's not giving me the send link in my chat.
Enter chat.
I'm going to. So I'm going to hit enter. So the resolutions I've got currently drafted, it said staff retain a consultant to bring to council a summary review of the 2014 National Award case study of the Regina wastewater treatment plant as it relates to the applicability of the project to the city of Fernie's wastewater and wastewater treatment system. Is that what we're asking? And then Mr. Bornowski asked that it not be to a cost of over $1,000.
Mr. Bornowski.
My only comment, Your Worship, if I may, I would like to write this on a little note and pass it, but we're in this Zoom environment, is I'm not certain that we require the consultant. This may be something staff can bring. I would say, I would suggest that staff, rather than retain a consultant, that staff bring back to council a summary review of the 2014 National Award case study for the Regina wastewater treatment system as it relates to the applicability of the project to the city of Fernie's system at a cost of no more than $1,000.
Since Mr. Bornowski changed words, I did not capture all of, I'm going to.
Can I ask you a question while some wordsmithing's happening?
Yeah.
With regards to the up to 1,000, I'm curious about that. I'm curious about whether or not Mr. Bornowski has the latitude, like we passed this without putting the $1,000. Does Mr. Bornowski have the latitude to be able to say that's worth spending $1,000 on? Because it's completely outside our scope and budget and so on, so it's never been discussed.
Yeah.
Do you?
I have purchasing authority if I have budget that is unallocated. My project budget in corporate administration has been dedicated to communication projects in its entirety. So I would be now going to look to what budget line is most appropriate and likely running that into a bit of a deficit and then requiring a budget amendment later in the year when we bring that back in a consolidated way.
Right.
It's a long answer. The shorter answer is I'm not presently in this meeting aware that evaluation of P3s or other models is not going to become part of our long-term wastewater plan as we currently work through completing testing, completing preliminary permit application, coming into compliance, and then designing major systems. My preference is that council is aware and endorses the cost that they're going to incur now, given that I can't say that this wouldn't be a cost you would incur in a year and a half later down the road.
Right. If I may, just for clarifying, why I asked the question is, it would be a lot simpler if we'd been able to say, here's a summary and go off and do it and trust that the resources were available and applicable and so on, although I completely understand, I understand the response. I think that's good to know so that we don't send off that expectation without providing the financial direction and so on.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I put an amendment into the chat and it reads that staff bring back to council a summary review of the 2014 National Award case study of the Regina wastewater treatment system as it relates to the applicability to the city of Fernie's wastewater system project. Does that capture what we're talking about?
Do we need the financial balance in there?
If I may, Your Worship, I would, because then if it comes back that this is going to take a lot of work and interviews and staff time, I would then, if it's going to cost more than $1,000, hit the brakes and come back to council for clear direction.
Please, if you could add to this.
Do you know greater than $1,000?
Yes. Mover? Councilor Ramnes, seconded by Councilor Thompson. Any further discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Does that conclude your council report?
Just made it business.
Councilor Hamilton.
Thank you. This has been an anomaly because I have a lot to say. I won't rehash Boardwalk. Some guys did a great service to it, discussing it here, but it was a fantastic event. It's always amazing and quite the experience to participate. I too was also part of the AKBLG meetings discussing resolution priorities from our AKBLG AGM and setting up minister meetings. This past last weekend was pretty busy in town. I didn't participate in the gravel grind, but I went and enjoyed some of the festivities. So want to give a kudos to the organizers there. That's another great event for our community. Saturday morning, I spent 3, 4, 5 hours, I think, in total down at the soccer field as part of the Fernie Soccer Association's house team jamboree, soccer jamboree. It was pretty awesome seeing the improvement in all of the kids and their skills over the season. And lastly, it's the end of the school year this week, so enjoy a happy summer to all of the students who have a day and a half of school left, and a bunch of kids are already out of school, and congratulations to all the grads this year.
Thank you, Councilor Schusman.
For the most part, everything is just pretty awesome. I attended the Business Beard Banter, and I was actually approached by several people who suggested the public-private idea, and they were quite knowledgeable and talked to me at length about it. So this is very timely that this has come up. Synchronism right there. That's all. I don't really have any much.
Do you mind, Your Worship, if I add one more thing?
No, of course not.
I just wanted to say that on the weekend of July 14th, it's actually the 15th and 16th, will be the first annual Arthur Sombrowski Memorial Doubles Tournament. You can register to participate at Fernie Sports Co. online. They're also looking for people to help, and all the funds raised will be donated to BC Transplant. So if anyone is a tennis player or volunteer, I'm a spectator, so I'll be volunteering. That might be something worthwhile to consider on that weekend. Thank you.
No, thank you. I am. I wanted to be a spectator, but I am now a participant. So actually, it will prove interesting. Echoing Councilor Hampton, I want to congratulate the grads of the community from Fernie Secondary School and the Fernie Academy. I was had the honor of presenting the City of Fernie Scholarship at the Academy graduation today. It was a lovely event. I too participated in the Academic Cleat Border Walk on Indigenous Peoples Day, and echoing again Councillor McIsaac's comments, there's something profound about walking through an international border unmolested and back again. And I certainly appreciate the symbolic act that represents in terms of Indigenous peoples' use and occupancy predating that international boundary. And so on the following day, I was, on behalf of the RDK, got to participate in the Sanaha annual charity golf tournament at St. Eugene Mission, and had a great round of golf, and it's a great event and good fun. Again, our Canada Together celebrations, July 1st here at City Hall, with our illustrious councillors handing out cupcakes. And I don't think I've just reported on this since we last had a regular council meeting, but had the good fortune to participate in the Elk Valley Suicide Task Force Solstice Ride for Mental Health. It wasn't on the solstice, but it was a great event, incredibly social and well attended by the community, and certainly raises awareness. And lastly, again, to Councillor Hamilton's point, the Fernie Gravel Grind was a great success, a great event for our community. I had actually my nephew and his girlfriend came from Vancouver to participate, and my brother came from Pitcher Creek to participate, and was sitting on our deck, and I was looking at the results. He wasn't going to go to the awards ceremony, and I said, "Well, you finished second in your I can't remember division, and so we won a medal." So he was delighted, thrilled. So that's it. I think that concludes our business of this meeting.
For the open portion.
And so I will ask mover and a seconder for the following recommendation, that the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to section 90, sub 1, sub C, sub E, and K of the community charter, as the subject matters being considered at this time relate to labor relations, other employee relations, the acquisition, disposition of land, or other land improvements, and discussions related to the proposed provision of a municipal service. The mover, Councilor Ramos, seconded by Councilor Schutz. Any discussion? All in favor? And we are now in closed. Thank you for joining us this evening, everybody. And, we'll see you soon.